You want me to sing the song?
Welcome to episode 40 of Property Avenue WA. Can you believe it? He's Oscar D'Souza. I'm Tony Viner, and we're your host tonight. And what for the next 45 minutes or so? We generally never do 45 minutes. We generally go well over 45 minutes. But I'm really looking forward to tonight because we always sort of talk about the fact that Property Avenue WA is not about selling anything. It's about the focus is on WA, and as we say, it's your avenue to matters property in Western Australia. And tonight I am really chuffed because we've got a young man who has given up his time and accepted our invitation to come on board. And we're going to sort of have a chat to him about his journey, his dream about buying his first home. But it's not going to stop here. What we're going to do is Ciaran has very generously offered to allow us to follow his journey from today and as it progresses through the processes. So it's not just us talking, but the opportunity to see a real life experience and the hurdles that he'll obviously come across and some of the wrongs and some of the rights. And hopefully in between all that, he will understand that it's not like buying a piece of ham, but hopefully at the same time, as a thank you to Ciaran, Oscar and I will offer our assistance with him throughout that journey and be there to help him along the way. So should be lots of fun. While I have the opportunity, hello, mate. Nice to see you. Hello. How was the week? All those things. How you been?
Good. Do you want me to answer any of those questions, or should we just? Because it's been a very, very big week in WA. It's been another big week in WA real estate, but that's been the same for a long time. But there's just been so much going on, mate. As you know, we've had lockdown. We've had the stuff unfolding up in Carnarvon, or that's unfolded in Carnarvon. So we've had the flooding. And also something obviously in the news today as well. Everyone loves to have a crack at Eddie everywhere, Eddie Maguire. But I think, credit where credit is due. He's been part of the Collingwood Football Club for 28 years or something it is.
22, 23, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that the guy's put his absolute heart and soul into everything Collingwood. He's absolutely lived it, flown the flag, so to speak. And when he leaves his role in Collingwood, Collingwood's losing something really, really that's been really, really good for them. It isn't the ending that anyone would have wanted, but credit where credit is due, mate. He's a very good individual, and he's needed to step down for obvious reasons, but that shouldn't be taken away from all the good that he's done. So, and I'm not even a Collingwood supporter, but I appreciate the contribution that someone as great as Eddie Maguire has made.
Yeah, and sometimes pros and highlights. I mean, there are some sensitive issues, and we won't go into those, but also, be in the positions he's in, not just in that role, but also media, etc. And of course, you're entering a very sensitive field, and so there's an element of tall poppy syndrome. I think, and that's not just this week. That's been going for a while because, like he and a few others, it's when you've got a profile, it's one of those Aussie things that we do, I suppose. But it is. And you read some of the articles, there's some that praise him and some that don't. It's just, I suppose, it's life. It's part of life. And,
that said, though, I really do think genuinely, and with all the right intentions, he really has put his heart and soul into the football club. There's no doubt over his love for the great Australian game. But the other thing is, just like every single one of us, he's human. He's got a heart like anyone else, and to see someone, I saw the press conference, so to see someone as vulnerable and to be put in that position, whether you like him or you don't like him, we're all human at the end of the day, and it's a sad time, it's a sad ending as well, but life goes on. and I'm sure it'll go on for him, and I'm sure it'll go on for the Great Melbourne Club.
Yeah, and mate, just touching on the other things. What our intention is tonight, obviously, we said we're going to talk to Ciaran. That's the focus tonight. Have a good chat to him about a few things, and we might just cover. Although with the COVID lockdown last week, that obviously would have impacted on the stats and what occurred with the real estate. Have you got anything info there as to where that has gone, where that's been?
Mate, I have got some stats, and look, it probably did have a bit of an impact on the stats, but nothing diabolical like what we saw in March, I guess, last year. Sales-wise, still almost another 800 sales over the course of the COVID lockdown week. Listings are well down, so now we're down just over 7,500 listings, and that's well down from 12 months ago, where it was over 12,500 listings. So we've seen that drop from 9,000 to 8,000, and now we're down to just over 7,500. So any real estate agent will tell you there's just not enough supply. The rental market as well, 650 properties leased. That number is quite a bit down. Normally we're looking at 8 to 900 properties a week. Sometimes it drops a bit, to 750. So to be down to 650, 12 months ago it was 1,082. So yeah, both markets are still very, very strong. But as you know, I've speculated over the last few weeks as to whether we're actually tapering off, and not that the sting's gone out of the market, but are we still heading into crisis land, or are we really leveling off where that level of demand is now starting to meet the supply? It might be a bit too early to call it, but yeah, I think we're actually heading into that territory. So, but both markets are still very, very strong.
Yep. Talking about the bushfires and the dramas we had with the floods, etc. One thing that obviously is very much associated, and we've had him on before, in Justin Collins, with regard to insurance. Obviously, that have basically promoted as being disaster, and it highlights the impact that those sort of things have on the property world, but also the importance of insurance. And there are some very sad situations. There was one poor girl I heard, she had moved into her property on the Saturday, and the bushfire went through her place, and she didn't have time to get her insurance in place before she went into a new property. I mean, it just highlights that perhaps, rightly or wrongly, but perhaps it was a situation. There's a classic example of that. I know people ask us, when do they do? We won't do the insurance until the property's settled. But sometimes it's probably not in. It's probably in your interest to be that little bit early, because it's not going to cost you anymore. But at least get things in place.
Yeah, but just like, we're all human again, and it's just always
totally.
one of those things where you sit there and go, and, and so many people do it. I've done it myself, where you sit there and go, oh, look, I'll organise that next week sort of thing. And from memory, she was a tenant that had just moved into her property, and so all the contents and everything of what she's just moved in is gone. That is super sad, super devastating, and as if she didn't have enough of a rental crisis on her hands with regard to trying to find a new property. So all shades of bad over there, mate. Sincerely, hearts go out to those people affected in whatever shape or form by those bushfires.
Big time. And of course, our friends up there in Carnarvon, I mean, the same thing with all those floods. I mean, in a different way, but it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre what we've experienced here in WA in the last week or two. It's just amazing.
It's been one hell of a week.
Yeah, it has been, and our hearts go out to all those people, and we wish them all well. Hey, what I think we should do, I think we should go in and introduce Ciaran.
Yeah.
So let's, Ciaran, mate, welcome. Good to see you. You probably know much more about how all this works than us, but a couple of old fellas that are just trying to do our bit. But mate, we really appreciate you coming on board and allowing us to sort of enter into your world and your experiences and your journey with buying your first home. So welcome, mate. Maybe what's your background before we start?
Firstly, hi TV, hi Oscar. So my name is Ciaran. I work in mental health, people who are on the NDIS, and I link them with supports and services.
Yep.
I've been doing that for about 18 months, so primarily working in the community. So yeah, working with a good team and that sort of thing. So thoroughly enjoy it.
And normally on Tuesday nights, mate, you're involved in your soccer, am I right?
Yeah, I guess because of what's happened with lockdown and restrictions and trying to get a pitch available, we're on tomorrow night instead of tonight, which is nice to mix it up, the change. So, yeah.
Yep. Now, listen, what we're obviously here about is the fact that you, and we can only blame one person, and it was your mate that dobbed you in because he wasn't prepared to do it. And he's Rhino, who has been very generous with his time for us, and he's now, while we have the opportunities, we push the button and let people know that Property Avenue WA is now available via podcast. So if you go into iTunes or you go into our Property Avenue WA Facebook page, you'll be able to find the link. And if you don't want to watch our ugly faces on a Tuesday night, you can just listen to us, and that'll be Rhino will download that and have that loaded for podcast followers on Wednesday morning. So he dobbed you in, and so your plan is to buy a home. Where are you at? Where have you started?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the more or less the house hunting phase now. So I grew up in the northern suburbs. So I grew up in Greenwood, and then my parents moved to Ciaran. So I'd ideally love either of those two suburbs, but being realistic, I probably can't afford suburbs right now. But yeah, I'd like to kind of start hunting in I guess the northern
Ryan,
corridor.
Ciaran, just before you go, just your sound, mate. When you look away, your microphone's not clear. So
Okay.
just because we're going to be doing this podcast as well, so just when you look away, it's obviously fading out. Can't hear you clearly.
Okay, sure. I'll keep it closer. Is that better?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I'm basically gonna start house hunting now and try and look for somewhere in the northern suburbs. Ideally, that's my plan anyway.
Yep.
So one of my good friends is actually a real estate agent, so he's gently reminded me a couple of times, oh, when you start, give us a holler and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll be liaising with him, I guess, too.
Yeah. And have you told him that you're going to tell the world about your experience?
I haven't actually disclosed yet, but when he finds out I'm on this, he'll be spreading the video and love so, in a good way. Yeah.
Who's your good friend, Ciaran? Who's a good friend, or can you not say?
No, I'm sure he won't mind. Alexander McEnany. So he works for Real Mark Northern Coastal. So nice.
Fantastic.
So good bloke. Yeah.
So
excellent.
So what was your thinking? So when you decided you're going to, how long ago, has it always been a dream to buy your first home? Was it something that you thought, right, I'm fear of missing out? What sort of motivated you to start looking to buy a home?
I think I sort of started, I guess, the process of thinking, from a young age. I think the motive was I think I've always, I've grown up here. I love Perth. I'm a proud Perthian, so I think I've always wanted to stay here and not look elsewhere. So I think that's the path you follow, is trying to, try and locate a house sort of thing, and I guess follow in the footsteps of my parents too, who are Irish but moved over here and secured a house and that sort of thing too. So I think, but to have a bit of security and stability too, that's probably the first motive. And yeah, I like Perth.
And so, what have you done? What have you done up to this point? What inquiries and what are the things that you've gone about? What have you? Okay, so what are the inquiries you've made so far for the process?
So yeah, recently, a couple of days ago, I started looking on I think it's the Rewa website, and I started putting, I guess, the deposit that I have at the moment, and that price range, and seeing what's available and that sort of thing. I guess brief conversations with my real estate friend too, I think when a couple of years ago I was actually in the sauna, I heard a bloke say he was chatting to his friend, and he said, "Oh, if I had my time back, I would have lived a little bit further out with a bigger house than closer to the CBD and a smaller place." And I guess that brings in the question of living in a desirable location and a property that's scarce and valuable. But I think that's something I've been weighing up. You know, whether you want to try and live closer and central in a smaller spot, or, like, for instance, I really like the beach, so I'd like to try and be close to the beach, and I think I'm prepared to buy further out north, close to the beach. So I think that's probably something I'm factoring in, like the size of the house, the location. But the bigger the house gets, the more cleaning you have to do, and that sort of thing. So, and the water rates and land rates. Yeah, I think it's sometimes tricky to evaluate, but that's probably where I'm at. So, but I do have suburbs in mind. But whether or not I can afford it.
Ciaran, have you considered, if you didn't go for a house though and something more affordable, have you considered something like a unit?
Yeah, it's something my dad has suggested. Certainly like a unit and that sort of thing. I have to say that I'm pretty focused on getting a house though. I think
Right.
I just like having your own backyard and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So yeah, probably house is probably number one. But I guess depending on how it all goes, you know, you could get a nice unit in I guess a more central spot, or, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Matt, one thing that I would say, just in terms of being an old man sitting in the sauna, if I was sitting in the same sauna as you, and I'm 44 years old, so one of the things that I'd say to a younger person, and this is the first time that I've met you, so the first thing that I'd say is, far out, mate, I think you've got your head so much better screwed on than what I did when I was at your age. So that, and everything that you're saying to me, or to us, sounds well thought out, sounds very logical and very rational. That wasn't me when I was at your age. So, but one thing that I would say is that you've got the right idea, and you've got the right motivation and reasoning as you why you want to buy something. But from an older guy now to a younger guy, because you're on that sort of a path, make sure that it's something that is going to suit your lifestyle, because if you do it only for investment and security and for money, and making money, but then you're not enjoying the journey along the way for 5 years or 10 years or beyond that when you're living there, it's going to be a really, really long process just for the sake of money. Versus you can buy something, like you say, maybe a bit further out. Maybe it won't be as great in terms of its capital appreciation. It'll still go up in value over time, but the journey of your life and living there will be much more enjoyable, and you know, a lot more bearable as well. So have your investment hat on, but also have your lifestyle hat on at the time when you're looking for what that first property is going to be.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Oscar. I appreciate that. I think generally in life I have a health and well-being focus, so certainly integrating the lifestyle aspects is, instead of the financial side of things, is definitely something I'll take into consideration, because you will have a mortgage for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, TB, the only thing, just to add to your question, was I read a book. He's actually a financial planner or an accountant by trade. Stuart Weems is his name. I think he's based in Melbourne. But he wrote a few things about considering what you said, Oscar, about a house in terms of it being close to health facilities, the shops, recreational centre, transport, and that sort of thing too. So that's maybe the only other thing I think, which all sort of ties in with lifestyle too. So to mention it, but that's probably, in terms of prop, that's probably the only other bit of research and homework I've sort of done.
Excellent. Good, man.
I think it also highlights, as a first home buyer, it's not just a simple exercise with regard to the decision making, and that's before you even go through all the other processes that go with buying a property, all the legalities, all the other things that you enter into. I mean, at this point, just identifying what it is you want, identifying where you want to be, identifying the type of property you want. There's all those things that come into. What did you start with first, other than saying, okay, now I'm going to make that decision? How long was that decision made before you got to the point of saying, right, I'm now going to go and do something about it?
Oh, good question. To be honest, TV, I think it's something that's always been a goal or something that I've wanted to, I guess, a goal is to try and have my own place. So I don't think it was a certain age. I think when I got into full-time work a couple of years ago, that certainly helped with working towards it until I'm still living at home with my parents now. So it's a fantastic platform and an avenue to save money. But I think maybe, from certainly the last couple of years, it's been a focus. Probably when I came out of uni, so 22, 23, like I did a bit of travel before that. Thankfully, I've done it now, where facing at the moment. But when I got back from so maybe 22, 23,
yeah. And what, like, have you gone to the point of saying, have you spoken to someone about the financial situation and what it's all very well to say, right, I'm going to buy whatever I'm going to buy, but if you've got some idea and got some advice from someone with regard to what you can afford and what your any capacity is, have you gone to that point?
Yeah, sort of. I did see a soccer teammate of mine. He's an accountant and a colleague of financial planner. I did have an opportunity late last year to sort of go through my plan and the savings that I have and that sort of thing. What has been helpful is my sister, who's 18 months older than me, bought a house last year. So it's been, I guess, in my point of hearing what the mortgage repayment is, and I guess some of the house maintenance that have come up now since she's bought a place. So consider financially what might come up when you're a home.
Yep. And the with regard to what you're doing now, are you aware of all the things that have made up with regard to the process? Has that worried you? There's been things that you thought would occur and haven't occurred. Like, have there been, for want of a better term, have there been a few gifts that have been put to you and then you realise, and that's not quite true, or the other way around?
You mean in terms of the home?
So, mate, it's hard to. Sorry, I'm having difficulty picking up some of your wording. Sorry, what was that?
Do you mean in terms of the first and that sort of thing, or do you mean what people are telling you to look into it and consider buying a place? Do you mean that?
Just some of the things that maybe you were told by. I mean, what we sometimes experience is, as I call it, barbecue Monday. You have a situation where you've been out, you've seen your soccer mates, or you've been to a party and someone's bought a house, and suddenly you make mention that you're going to do similar, and then all of a sudden you're getting advice in different directions, and not necessarily is that information correct, not necessarily is that information the same with your circumstances. Have you experienced that up to this point?
Not really, not yet. With that, I think probably the biggest thing we have with buying a house is probably just the casualisation of the workforce in the last few years. Like, I think there are only a couple of industries where you can get a permanent job. So I think the ability to the mortgage payment month after month is probably something I get concerned or stressed about in the future. But in terms of what people are saying, that's something not going.
Yeah. Yep. And what questions would you have for now? Have you got any questions at the moment that have sort of been on your mind that you'd like to ask now that you've got?
I think what Oscar said about lifestyle. So,
Sorry?
I think what Oscar just said a few minutes back about the lifestyle aspect when purchasing a house is really valuable, and I take it into consideration. I guess with guys have got any other, suggestions or recommendations for someone who is at this stage now, what else to consider or research, check it out, or places to look?
Yeah.
So the sound, obviously, I don't know why there's a bit of a speaker issue, Ciaran, but yeah, the sound, it's it's not because you're talking too soft or anything, it's just, somewhere along the line, the sound is not coming through that well. But what was I going to say? I guess if I reword TV's question to you, as opposed to have you got any questions, have you got any concerns with the process that you're about to go through, and particularly when you hear constantly in the media about the real estate market, where it's at, prices are going up, there's big long lines for home opens and all that sort of stuff. How do you interpret that? How does that make you feel? Is that a problem for you, or is that just the way it is, and you'll get one when you get one?
Yeah, I think you do have to just take it as it comes, I think. But I think it's also on the other side of it is recognizing when you do see a great property and what's the word? Snapping up the opportunity, for instance, of putting in an offer. So I think I'll be able to take it in my stride and see how it goes. But I think I'll try and have the process in the back of my mind, recognizing it a valuable property and recognizing that it will be scarce of other buyers and that sort of thing. But I think I'm willing to be patient and see how it goes.
And who knows, your mind might change at some point in time, recognising everything that we've spoken about already, where if properties continue to go up in value and those properties that were $450 then become $480 and then become $520, whatever your budget is, and then suddenly they become further and further out of reach, you might sit there and go, maybe a townhouse or a villa or something that's got a much smaller yard, but is going to be more affordable, but still have the things that you want. Maybe you might need to look at other options, but for now, it sounds like you're surrounded by some good people that can guide you through this first home buying journey of yours. I would have thought within the next few months, is that the plan? Do you think within the next few months you'd like to have your name against something?
Yeah, that's the plan, Oscar and TV. I'll be 27 in May, so my goal was to secure a place before I hit the 27. So that's the plan. I've just thought of one question. Could I ask, do you guys happen to know the percentage of stamp duty between houses worth $430,000 to $530,000? Do you happen to know that percentage? Is it a set percentage, or does it vary? Or
No. I can tell you that, obviously, without my involvement as owning a settlement agency. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I'm about to do a search for you. But yeah, there is a percentage. And as a first home buyer, up to $430, you're exempt of stamp duty. Then of course beyond $430, you'll pay duty, but it'll be a concessional rate as a first home buyer. But what I'll do is that I'll get that specific information for you. But yeah, there is a thing, but I'll ensure that I get that info to you. And in fact, we might we'll put I'll see if I can't get a tab on our Facebook page that people can log into and calculate that. Get a calculator that will give them the rate of stamp duty, because that's a good question. Because that is, particularly as a first home buyer, if you go outside that $430,000 price bracket, then that plays a big part. And not only for first home buyers, but for home buyers in general. People buy a home, and I've had many clients that ring me and ask my advice, and then suddenly go, what are the costs associated with buying property, the settlement costs, etc. And then when you tell them the stamp duty, they nearly fall out of their tree, because it's a massive impost on the purchase of a home. And interestingly, we've had this discussion in recent episodes, because in New South Wales and Victoria, I think you'll find, they have reviewed, the state governments have reviewed their stamp duty processes. And I do know, Oscar, that one of the things that Real Estate Institute WA during state election coming up is with some form of reform with WA stamp duty, albeit their intention is, but their intention, the way I've read it, and Oscar, you may be able to tell me differently, but their intention is to pay the stamp duty by instalment.
Okay.
So you have a choice of doing it up front, or you'll buy your property and you'll pay stamp duty by instalment.
Yeah. So I haven't actually read that bit in terms of the option, but I know that REWA, for the last 6 months has been advocating for stamp duty reform. I think the reality, and I just have to be brutal, I think the reality of actually getting some sort of stamp duty reduction or the reform that we're looking for is somewhere between Buckley's and none. I just can't see that happening. Because it's such a massive source of revenue for the state government. And but you know what? Maybe I'm being too cynical about it, because we're going to be posting quite a large budget surplus, and we've actually got a booming economy right now, largely fueled by the price of iron ore and the other industries as well. So maybe I'm being too cynical about it, but I think that's a great initiative by REWA, that if we're not actually going to see a reduction, but the manner of payment can be at least adjusted, I reckon that's a really good step in the right direction, because it would mean that you wouldn't have to have that large sum of money up front. You'd be able to pay it off over a period of time.
And I would like to see, in addition to that reform, I would like to see the older generation, the generation of the 65-year-olds and, the older people, when they downgrade their home, they get a considerable concession in their duty, so that, as I've said before, so that they can allow them having a few more pennies in the bucket, and perhaps less reliance on government handout, pension, e.g. That's just my thought.
Yeah, it's a good thought, TV, but I think it'll fall somewhere in that category of Buckley's to none.
And I suppose when you've got 88% popularity, you probably don't have to worry too much, do you?
But back to Ciaran. So let's just say, mate, that's an amazing goal, that over the next 2 to 3 months you want to have your name against a property, and then a commitment to a property as well. So what's the thought space over 5 years might be too much, but the first 2 to 3 years, is it going to be for you and a couple of mates, or at some point are you wanting to settle down, family and all that, or is it going to be you and the dog? What does that look like?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I'm single at the moment. It'd be nice to meet someone, but I think in the next couple of years it probably will be with a dog or two, maybe. A few people, I've actually spoken to some of my mates, and their dads were sort of saying, if you are to buy a place, you should let some mates move in, because it'd be a good experience, but it'll shave off the mortgage repayment a little bit and that sort of thing too. So it's Yeah, I don't know, but I do value my time and space for myself. So, yeah, we'll see. I guess I'll just see how it goes in a couple of years' time. But it is a good thought to have in a couple of years' time. You know, to do. Ideally,
Well, what I can tell you, mate, is in terms of the positioning of the market where it is now, and I've been around real estate for it's around about 25 years, so I've certainly been through a couple of up and down cycles, and TV's probably been through an extra one or two as well. But I'm not actively out there selling real estate or anything like that. But right now, in terms of is now a good time to be buying real estate? I'm happy to share the opinion. I've never actually seen such a great time with the economy that we've got, with the demand for housing, with the price of money, with the interest rates the way that they are, and then also the incentives provided to first home buyers as well. Honestly, there's so many things in your favour over there. And if the market continues, and it looks like it will, in terms of achieving a good growth rate, back when I bought my first property, it was in a time where the market was going up, and then I bought the second and third property as well, and the market continued to go up. And riding that wave, it's an awesome wave to ride, but then the wave changed and it started going back the other way. So, and that wave isn't that great to ride. So, but right now, if you're positioning yourself now and have got a 2, 3, maybe 5 year plan, it looks to me like you're going to have a pretty good ride.
Sounds good. Okay. No, thank you for that advice. It
Um,
sounds like now.
One thing I'll ask.
Or a good.
Oh yeah. One thing I will ask, if there's other people out there than the first home buyers, like yourself, are probably wondering where to start, what to do. What would you be telling them with regard to they've got the dream, but they don't know where to start? What would you consider being a starting point?
For someone who's wanting to buy their own place, do you mean? Like putting
Someone
away
like
savings from that point of view?
Well, just what you would consider. What you would consider, like, if your decision making. There's obviously others out there that are sort of going, I wouldn't mind buying my first home. I'm 26 years of age, the same as Ciaran. What would you be saying to them to other than get off the lounge room chair? What would you be? What would your first port of call be as someone that's gone through the process to a point?
Yeah, I think discipline's a massive one. I think with saving, I guess having the savings a deposit for a house, and I think it comes down to lifestyle decisions too. So maybe having quieter weekends and instead of having big nights out and that sort of thing, because that can really hit your bank account. So I think, but also having a plan, like a set goal of how much you want to save per month, and then what that would look like quarterly, after 6 months, after a year, and then so it compounds. I think budgeting is a massive one that comes into it. So working out.
Ciaran, have you actually done that as well, as if you had bought a home and then you had to pretend that you had to make the monthly repayment on the mortgage, you had to pay the insurance, and then you had to pay. So have you actually done it as if you had bought a home, just as a bit of a trial to see what it's like to make that commitment?
Yeah, I sort of have the figures in my mind because I've sort of asked my sister what her mortgage repayment is. So I guess I've factored in that monthly mortgage repayment, but then considering too what, electricity, water, gas, and all that would be. So yeah, I informally I sort of have a plan of what it might cost, but also factoring in, I guess, the recreational things I do, like playing soccer or going out for coffee with friends and that sort of thing. So yeah, I kind of have a vague plan, but the closer I get to it, the more focus and clear it will be.
So what next for you, mate? What's happening this weekend? What's the next move?
I think I'm pretty close to actually getting in contact back with my real estate friend and just seeing if we can sort of start it now, because I can start sort of looking now. So that's really the plan. So yeah, I'll start looking and seeing what's out there and going from there. But what you said too, Oscar, about the lifestyle side of things, but also considering a townhouse or villa and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the plan. It's an exciting phase. I think the other thing, sorry, back to the original question. I have a bad habit of doing this, of coming back to previous questions. But the question you asked TV before was, I think it's when I was saving, when I was halfway through, maybe a year ago, I couldn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think with anything worth pursuing, you have to just keep at it and stick with it. So I think that's something really important too, if you want to try and have it be a house. Yeah.
And have you got your pre-approval organised? Have you sort of done that part as well, your finance?
I haven't done it this month, but I did do it late last year, so I will have to give them a call. But yes, that's on the to-do list.
Yep.
Yeah, I will be calling them.
Because that certainly from our experience, we've had a couple of finance brokers on as guests, and they last week we had been townhouse. Mine and a friend of ours has been a guest on our regular guest on our podcast, and he was making mention about the value of getting pre-approval, which gives you some idea of your ability to go shopping, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what I can
So,
borrow.
and mate, we're certainly keen to offer and be available for advice when the time needed, if whatever the case may be. If you want to run anything past us, you're always welcome. In appreciation of what you've offered us, and we really appreciate it. I think what you're saying is commendable, and I'm excited for you. But I'm also interested to see, it won't be an easy ride. As good as we all do our homework, it's different things rise. Hopefully not. But I always laugh when I see advertisements and people sort of saying, we will make it stress-free for you, and we will do this, and you go, oh, well, really, truly, as hard as we will try, I think buying a property at the best of times is trying to suggest stress-free. I think that's a pretty big promise, and I'm not prepared to give that promise to you or anybody else, to be honest. It's one of those things that you will go through different emotions, you will have different challenges, you'll have different frustrations, and not everything will go right. As much as you try your damnedest, not everything will go right. Hopefully that's not the case for you, but quite often there's just those little things. It might be the simplest thing that can impact, whether it be on the settlement process, the buying process, the finance process, and there's so many other parties involved in the whole thing. That's another issue.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, TV. Property does sound like life as you get older, plenty of ups and downs, and how you handle those hurdles and obstacles, So yeah, no, I'll certainly keep that in mind. I'm certainly under no illusions. Someone tells me it's free, I'll know it certainly won't be, But I think it's a worthwhile thing to.
Yeah. As I say, we're certainly looking forward to following that journey with you, and we appreciate the fact that you have. We'll try and sort out our sound a bit better for our next chat.
Yeah, this is. I don't think we've had it this ungood before. Like something's not right somewhere. It's not going to make for a very pleasant podcast.
No, we'll just see how we go, unfortunately. But we may just try. If it doesn't work with the podcast, what we might do is try and do just an audio podcast with you separate. If the podcast is just poor quality, if you're happy, Ciaran, we might try and do a podcast at another time, just so we have got that. Because I think what we've discussed I think it's invaluable for those out there that are buying first time and just getting a real live experience of what someone's going through. So if this podcast, if our audio is poor quality, then we'll certainly entertain doing a separate podcast, which is purely audio and trying to improve on it. Hey, listen, because of the audio, we might call it, because of the audio, and I have no idea why the problem is like it is.
It's probably you, TV.
It might be me. It might be. But we will ask one question, and it's an if question. If someone was writing a story about you, would you be described as the hero or the villain? And you can tell me why if you want.
Probably
TV,
both.
I reckon in the background, mate, you're either cooking eggs or popcorn. One of the two. I can hear it.
I've got my microphone here, and I'm sitting here very quietly. I don't know what it is.
Someone's cooking eggs.
It could even be my phone. I'll look into it and see.
Are you cooking eggs?
Righto.
Sorry, TV's question. TV's question.
Okay, your answer. Ciaran, you go first. Well, do you want to go first?
Hero or villain?
Yeah, hero or villain?
I'd probably a bit of both, I would say, if I'm being brutally honest.
Oh, okay. Righto. A little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah. I wouldn't say you got the angel and the I guess the devil on the shoulders. So, yeah.
Okay. OD?
What's the question? What's the start of the question again?
If they're writing a story about you, are you described as the hero or the villain?
Okay, so my answer is it depends on who's writing the story, and if it was one of my sisters describing me as a young fella sub 25 or whatever, I'm sure I'd come along as or come across as the villain. But on the flip side, if I was writing my own story, in terms of would I be the hero or the villain, I actually think I'd be the hero, and this is the reason why. Because over the last 5 years for me, maybe over the last 4, but over the last 5 years, I'm human like everyone else, just like Ciaran, just like TV, just like Eddie Maguire, and there's been some things that have not actually gone to plan. And I had great expectations, and my expectations didn't get met, and I fell on my ass. I literally fell on my ass, and hit a low point, I guess, in my life. But I found it within myself and with the support and every one of those around me to get back on my feet and chase the dreams and chase what I love doing in life, and just generally being happy. And so, therefore, I think that makes me a hero. Wouldn't you agree, Ciaran?
Well said. Well, it's funny that you have described it that way, because that's probably how I would have described my story. Because I felt there's probably some that would say, "Oh, TV, you would be described as the villain if I was writing the story." But yeah, I'm a bit like you. If I was writing my own story, then similar situation with some of the things that I've gone through in the last couple of years in particular, and the help of my wife and the help of my family and my mates, including one of them on this screen, then I would probably classify myself. I'd probably be just writing a story about myself as a hero. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I think there's been, talking of heroes, I think there's been, where that if question came from was the volunteers and the firefighters and all those people that have been out there helping all those people. I think their story is none other than purely and simply hero. And the villains are those gooses out there that were raiding and robbing those homes, and the idiots down south who decided they'd light fires. They're not. I wouldn't even describe them as villains. I'd describe them as absolute gooses. And that was where the if question came from with regard to heroes and villains. So there we go. Hey, listen, we'll wind it up. I really appreciate Ciaran, you coming on board. And as I said, if the audio is really that poor, we'll try and touch base and do something about a podcast, because I think our conversation is really a good one and one that I think would be worth listening to. And OD, mate, I really appreciate your time. I really do apologise for those that are out there with regard to our audio. We'll check it out once we finish. But we look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll see what we can do. And in the meantime, everyone, please stay safe and safe travels. And happy house hunting for those including you. Take care.